Hi folks, how are you doing? In this interesting third round of this nice tournament, Carlsen didn't disappoint and played very interesting and complicated battle in his game with Fabiano Caruana. So Magnus is white today, Caruana was black. The game started with these moves. Caruana was always, or almost always, I must say, because he played the Benoni earlier, goes for Grunfeld, and now Carlsen chose f3, an interesting alternative to the classical 2 knight c3. And well, this was I remember Anand used this to score a quick victory against Boris Gelfand in their World Championship match 2 years ago. And since then, I mean, it wasn't any novelty or something, but since then lots of top GMs have gave it a shot, like Caruana himself, Aronian, Kramnik, Karjakin, etc. So an interesting kind of an anti-Grunfeld system, which usually leads to complicated and really double-edged battle. Now knight c3, some logical moves, bishop e3, black castles, and queen d2. White is planning to castle long and launch a kingside attack. Black will do the same either on the queen side or even more naturally attacking the pawn structure in the center. So in some point very similar to the open Sicilian games, with both king castled in opposite sided, and well, really interesting battles arising from this line very usually. Here Caruana goes with queen d6, very theoretical move, inviting white to play knight b5. The other main moves here are to play immediately against white pawn center with f5 or e5. These are two other main alternatives. Queen d6 was Caruana's choice. Now knight b5, and the queen goes back to d7, like move order theory, forcing a piece to come here and there, arguing that the knight is not very well placed on b5, etc. King b1. Caruana is following a game, for instance, he played against Gelfand in 2015. He also lost a game with this line as black against Aronian a couple of years ago in the Tata tournament in one of the last rounds, if I'm not remembering bad. Now rook d8, putting lots of pressure on the d4 pawn, kind of forcing d5, a6, knight c3. This is still theory, and the queen goes back to e8. Fabiano has played this move in both his previous games that I have in my database against Gelfand and Aronian. Queen c1, now taking on c6 is a threat because the queen is not on the d file anymore, so the knight must move to a5. And Carlsen plays bishop h6 with the idea of exchanging that bishop and having an early attack maybe on the king side with maybe h4, h5, queen h6, all that stuff. Bishop takes, queen takes, and e6, attacking the pawn chain in the center. Knight h3 with a fairly simple threat of knight g5 checkmate. So queen e7 is played, so that if white plays knight g5, now the queen protects after f6. So knight g5 doesn't make that much sense here. Carlsen instead keeps developing bishop d3, and e5 was played here. And Caruana, well, he said in the press conference after the game he was a little regretting this decision. The other alternative he was thinking about, that the game that the player showed before after the game, was this capture, and knight f4 is the move Caruana was worried about, because white has some attacks going on the king side. Now for instance, if bishop e6, knight h5 with threats on g7, if black takes, white most probably captures and there is attack here. So f6 is a move here and after see this more or less forced sequence, which by the way is not easy at all. The bishop sacrifices on g6, rook exchange, h takes, queen takes, king h8, knight takes f6. This is supposed to be very equal and drawish. Well, you can bet this player can calculate this, but this is rocket science for amateurs like me, I guess, to have all this calculated with precision. But okay, e5 is what Caruana played. Now the knight goes to f2, knight bc4 and h4. Still willing to open this h file to make the rook monster piece on h1. Rook d6 with both probably aggressive and defensive ideas. Your bishop takes first, knight takes back, and the queen goes back to c1. Well, most natural looking move h5 unfortunately is losing immediately the game, because this would be a trapped queen, just like another game of today's round happened. So the queen would be trapped in this variation. So the queen goes back, b5, knight to d3, bishop to d7, b3, chasing the knight away, knight b6. Now Carlsen plays h5. I mean, he has to try something here, because otherwise if he just sits and waits for Caruana to develop counterplay on the queen side in the center, he will have a rather passive position. Black goes g5, and well, here Carlsen decides to play g3 to go f4. Probably, objectively speaking, there was a better alternative, queen e3, which is suggested by the engine and also by Nigel Short during the live stream, with the idea of say a5 is played by black, for instance, to play queen c5 with a rather unpleasant pin here. But okay, g3 has his own ideas, of course. c6, attacking with everything this key pawn on d5, and now f4, a rather messy position in the center with lots of pawn tension going on. C takes on d5, and Carlsen takes on e5 with his knight. Very important move here for black is that he can push this pawn forward, creating a passed pawn, and in fact, if white is not careful enough, quite a dangerous pawn here. Queen a3 is part of Carlsen's idea, with a similar pin to one I showed a couple of moves ago. Now the rook, of course, is pinned to the queen, but a5 here is strong, with the simple idea of forking both pieces on a3 and c3. So now Carlsen, I guess, is more or less forced, although he would absolutely love to have any other possibilities here, to give up a piece for a couple of pawns. He takes on b5, bishop takes, and now he takes on b4 with the rook, and of course the rook cannot take back, queen is hanging. So, well, even though he got 2 pawns for the piece, I bet he would like absolutely to have seen any other plan here, not to have to sacrifice a piece, because in fact the advantage, the edge, although slight one, but it's in black's favor here, and well, white is not in the driving seat in this position. Rook e6, and the queens were exchanged. Now rook c1, trying bringing the other rook to the c file, forgetting of course about attacking on the king side, because there are not that much pieces left for white. You must be careful enough not to drop more material and or to get very passive position. Knight d7, cool idea, because if everything is exchanged, d7, this is almost a winning position, because white doesn't have yet any passed pawn. His pawns aren't dangerous at all right now. His king isn't active, so this is a tough position for white to defend. But the idea, well, white can play still this rook c7, but these exchanges are not there is basically no way to stop them. So black takes on e5, temporarily giving up his rook on e7, but he gets it back with knight c6, forking both rooks. If any of the rooks defends the other, nothing great is going to change. Black just takes and recaptures. So instead, Carlsen played the rook d5 move, attacking the bishop, and now Caruana decides to give up the bishop to get the exchange back, not the knight. He checks on d3, now rook takes, and he takes the rook on e7 without more hard damage to his pieces. Once again, we have the piece against two pawns, advantage for black, but technically not very easy to convert it. So Carlsen showing his defensive skills in this game. He takes a third pawn on g5. Rook b8 was played here, maybe with ideas to play a4. Rook d7. Magnus Carlsen later stated that he didn't think this was very accurate, but anyway. King f8, it activates a little bit the king. Rook a7, rook b5, protecting and attacking at the same time, but giving the back rank to white. Here maybe Carlsen could have the idea of playing rook a6, try to play h6 check and cage the black king on to the back rank, but he didn't play this. He played rook e8 instead. Now black must defend his knight. He goes rook e5, g4, takes here. White king starts to be active. Rook e5, king d3, f6. I mean, white has got some active king. He's pinning black a rook, so he has more or less succeeded in defending the position, holding it together. Now g takes, king takes. Now some logical moves, attacks here, king g7. The rook goes back, king h6, a3. White wants to create a passed pawn on the queen side. King g5, rook h8, h6, but now rook h7. Rook e6 protecting h6. Rook g7 check, king f6. Rook goes back to h7. Carlsen is defending really well this position. King e5, rook g7, king to f4, now b4. He gets passed pawn on the queen side. And although he's going to lose his king side pawns, he just this king side, this b pawn, this queen side b pawn is at least going to give him enough counterplay to hold the game. Now knight check, but the king goes forward to d4. Knight takes here, king goes even further. Rook e5 check, king c6. He loses his last pawn on the king side, but this big pawn is going to get the job done and save the day for the world champion. After a couple of checks, b7. They agreed to draw after the repetition of these moves, and king e5 was played. Most probably Caruana offered the draw, which of course Carlsen accepted. So there it goes, really hard fought and exciting game between these two very strong players, and it seems Caruana really having a great tournament, 2.5 out of 3, having leading solely the Norway chess tournament so far. Let's see what happens in the next round.